Today we have a very special video for you. We actually have an interview with Phoenix Nitro, one of the members of Vibe and 2K creator himself. He joins us on this show to talk about 2K23, Universe Mode, My Rise, My Faction, and a lot of the little updates and fixes to the game and what has him excited. Enjoy.
The referee really feels more lifelike now in the sense of how they move around the ring, how they react to movement in the ring, how they move around and everything along those lines. And during my interview with Lionel Jinx back at the Royal Rumble event, we talked about something along those lines, and he kind of hinted at something towards me with it, and it was essentially that if you've noticed, right, with everything that they have done since getting the game fully from Ukes, on W2K22, whenever I was flown out myself, BDE and Simply Better AM, when we were flown out to San Francisco to play W2K22 back last January, Jinx had sat down with us. Like, we played in a room where it was just us three, Jinx, Christina Damn Fam, and that was it. It was just us five. It was a very intimate setting for about 4 or 5 hours on 22, and they laid it out to us. They told us everything that they wanted to do and everything that they were trying to do, and they explained to us what our process is now. Is we have to rebuild these modes from the ground up, in the sense of not changing things, but literally rewriting code that Ukes has left behind, so that way then it's their code. They know exactly where this code is, so that way they can tweak it into the next game. And I'll give a perfect example of that. W2K22, they rewrote Universe Mode completely from the ground up. Now, it was the exact same as W2K20 and everything before that, but it was in their own stuff. And now, as we see going into W2K23, they were able to add a huge improvement with the stories and things of that nature.
Can you speak? So can you speak? I know that the embargo is going to lift. We'll have footage and everything up for Universe Mode tomorrow. Can you speak at all? I want to talk about the referee stuff in a minute again. But Universe Mode, can you give us any indication of any of the updates or changes that people will be excited to see? And I guess more of technically, are we going to have same amount of glitches, level crashes? Because I know we can't get into the specifics necessarily of what you saw and what's coming out, but is there anything large in Universe Mode that stood out that you could speak about, or you're like, this is great, this is going to help, fans are going to be excited? Because I am huge on Universe Mode. And what I've seen for GM Mode 2 this year so far has me excited. And I was kind of mid on GM Mode. But for Universe Mode, what are your thoughts?
So something I did do, I did go in, and I always have to preface this, right? I always have to preface anything I say with on the build that I played, because now that I've done this song and dance, if you will, a few years now of playing these early builds, literally anything can change with that day one patch. We do not know what's going to change. Things, for example, last year on W2K22, elimination chamber matches on the pre-release build that I got to play, you were able to do those matches in any arena you wanted to. But obviously when the game came out, they locked it. I do have an answer on that if you do want to dive into that later on. But to answer your first question real quick, with Universe Mode, the glitches that I noticed heavily, because that's my favorite mode, on 22, I did not see any of those on 23. I went in, I looked for the tag team finishers. That was completely fixed, which I was very happy about. That was the first thing that I looked for, and it was fixed, and I was very, very happy, to the point where I was visibly happy, and the devs were looking over at us from the setting that we were in.
Get your reaction?
They saw my face. Yeah, they caught it, and Jinx came up to me after and was like, "Hey, what'd you react to?" I was like, "The fact that tag team finishers could be selected." He was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was a thing all of 22." He was like, "I had no idea." I'm like, "That's insane," because of how the pipeline works and all of that with everything. There's a lot of stuff that sadly they don't really get to hear about. Now, thankfully, I've gotten into the position now where I have more of a direct line to a few devs, which has been very, very helpful as of late, as certain questions have popped up in the community that I've been able to directly ask. Like a few weeks ago, I know that rumor started about there's not going to be any face photos in Create a Superstar, and I directly reached out to a dev, asked them, they said, please tell the community that did not get taken out. That's just a rumor. So That things of that nature are really good. But with universe mode, all of the bugs that I really noticed on 22, I felt were fixed. Like I was able to save a match card. I was able to leave that mode. I went into a different mode, played an entirely different match in exhibition, went back to universe mode, and my card was completely saved with all of my rivalry actions as well, which rivalry actions is what they call the storyline stuff.
That's what I was going to ask you next, is that if you can speak on it, because I think this was even your interview that you did with the devs. I've talked about it on my channel. They did other interviews too, talking briefly and just saying how there's an action item list where you will be able to go in and set up your matches for your week and then hit that drop down or whatever it is and be able to select certain things if you're going to interrupt, just doing certain things to elevate it. And I also heard, and I could be wrong, but I thought it was through the devs, that they're pulling the same tools from My Rise and they have brought that over to Universe. And maybe that was what they were doing with 22, but I thought I heard that they were doing that with 23 to make things easier for them to, utilize everything in the sandbox. With your experience with it so far, what are your thoughts on the item list, action items, the stuff that you can do there? Are fans going to be excited about that?
So I believe, all right, I don't know. If I get in trouble later on, then I get in trouble later on. I don't care. I believe I'm allowed to talk about it. I can't show it, but I can talk about it. I'm pretty confident. So, and if not, and if I get in trouble, then who cares, baby? We live. Then
I got some questions. Then I got some.
Oh, no, literally, you can ask anything, and if I feel that I can't answer, then I'll just say that I can't answer. But feel free to ask literally anything. Like,
fair enough.
I really love your content, so I'm down for whatever, thanks, man. But when it comes to the story stuff, right, the way that it works. Something that bummed me out, because, I don't just talk about positives. I give my honest feedback with all of this stuff. Something that I was a little bummed about, but I kind of expected, was that you can only do these cutscenes with rivalries. I was kind of hoping that you'd be able to do it with every single match on the card, but it is what it is. It makes sense. It's fine. I get it for this year. Something I think a lot of people are going to say is they'll probably want more options for it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a lot of options. There are a ton of story options, and the way that it works is when you go, how when you go into the edit match screen of your universe mode card and you're able to change all these matches and things of that nature, you are now able to hit I believe it's R3. It'll pop up rivalry actions, and then that's where it pops up the user interface for these rivalry actions. You can hit a button to go into free mode, which is what I mainly was doing. And you can stop the gamification of universe mode, where whoever has the most momentum in the rivalry will win the cutscene. You can just choose to do whatever cutscene you want. That's what I was mainly looking at, because that's mainly how I use universe
Okay, so
mode.
you can. I think I saw this in an interview too, where they were talking about this, how there is going to be the sandbox and there's the free mode. Yep. You could run through kind of like the standard way of doing it, where the cutscenes will play out, like you're saying. They'll play out and they'll have their act, like the AI could win that thing, but you can go into free mode, like you're saying, and I could make it so that LA Knight, is gonna win that feud or win that promo or win that interaction. Is that right?
Yeah, so something that I noticed that they kind of didn't explain it too perfectly, I don't believe, because a lot of my friends were also asking me about that after I played. And I think a lot of people took what they said as you can let people win matches and stuff like that. That's not the case, but you can choose. So the way it works is every single cutscene that you're able to choose, it has a result if someone wins, and it has a result if the other wins. So there are actual now stakes within universe mode, let's call them, where let's say we have Assemble versus Phoenix Nitro. If Assemble wins, he gains 10 momentum in the feud. He gains +5 loyalty if it's like a tag thing, which loyalty, as we have talked about now with the AI logic, matters so much now. Your traits actually matter finally in universe mode. They gave an actual reason for it to matter, which is how your guy reacts within the AI. So say you're doing a tag rivalry, right, which is the one that I mainly did. And also, real quick, there are a lot of different stories based on what you're doing. If you have a really, really high rivalry intensity, there are different cutscenes that you cannot get if you're doing a medium intensity rivalry or a low intensity rivalry.
Oh, that's interesting. That's so much better.
Yeah, there are. It's really dope. But you also are able, in free mode, you are able to choose whichever one you want. So if you do want to have a specific cutscene play out, week, you can click it and you can see it. And they do give a very great description of what each cutscene is, which is very, very helpful, and especially for a content creator. It's amazing for like people that are doing universe mode stuff.
That's going to be huge just on our side. It's going to be great for content, for be able to run different promos, different storyline arcs. Did you see anything that was in the vein of promos or equivalent to it, where you can basically have Superstar X is in the ring and he's getting interrupted of a promo? I know that promos are not back, but this is brought up all the time by people that is promos back. I keep saying no, but is there even like the cutscenes of a promo?
Now, I personally have not clicked on it. I did not see this cutscene, but I can say there are some cutscenes that do mention being interrupted talking. So
cool.
I don't know how in depth it'll be. The cutscenes that I did see, they did take some cutscenes from My Rise last year. I don't know if they took some cutscenes from this year or not. I was not able to go through all of those cutscenes, which is a good thing, I would think, because there's a lot of cutscenes to choose from. I'll give a really good example to a cutscene that I saw. I'm a really big fan of NXT, so I went to NXT right away, and I saw that after I put on Legado del Fantasma into NXT, I was able to do some cool tag rivalries against the Diamond Mine, which is Julius Creed and Brutus. Brutus Creed? Yeah, I was about to say Brutus Magnus, but that's completely wrong company. So I was able to do a really cool story where like I did a couple of weeks of it, and I kind of freaked it, and I thought I was recording and I didn't, which I'm very sad about, but so that's why I have no universe mode content coming out. But whenever I was playing through the story, I was able to craft week after week a build up to Legado del Fantasma breaking up, which is what I wanted to test completely.
Cool.
It started off with you know those cutscenes that play out where like somebody a tag team comes out and they're like, I'm not really feeling it, Mr. Krabs, and they bring out another tag team to face them instead.
Yep.
I was able to do that. I was able in free mode to choose the opponents as well, which is something that I thought was very, very nice. It wasn't random. You can make it random if you'd like, but
you could go into free mode and you could craft exactly how you want a run-in, or them coming out if they're going to do a tag and be like, oh, I'm not going to be in the tag team match. This guy is, but you selected who you're going to have come out and replace, and it's not just some random.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Questions for you from the chat, because people are obviously loving this. Thank you very much for joining us, because this is awesome information and awesome to hear about the game. A lot of positives. One question came in from Joe, just asking regarding if yourself or others have pushed or asked about, special guest referee, other match types to be in future versions of the game.
Yes, absolutely. And something that, I'm going to reel it back to something I said earlier. Remember what I said about how WWE 2K22, they rewrote universe mode. So 23, they could then do bigger and better things with it. Yep. Something that a lot of people do not realize yet is that they rewrote referees this year. And I mentioned it earlier, referees do act differently now. If you go and watch with a keen eye to a lot of these AI matches that are out, notice how the referee moves. Notice how the referee goes down for a pin. Also notice the fact that they now have female refs. So something that I asked about was, because, once you start realizing the pipeline, the process of these things, you start figuring out kind of what their next move might be. Now, obviously, I didn't get it confirmed or anything along those lines, but I did bring it up, and I was like, hey, you guys rewrote referees. Any chance for special guest referee coming next year? And it didn't get confirmed or anything along those lines, but I think I pulled their card. I think we could be looking towards a special guest referee next year, possibly.
I think so too. Just from a general observer, I think that based on their timeline, how they only have 8 to 9 months to get another game out, which is a crazy timeline to put this together, you could see that this year it is War Games is the focus, and I have questions on that in a second too. But War Games is the mode. I could see that next year can be more building blocks, building on top of what they've done for 23, so that they make the improvements to anything in War Games and they add another match type or two. And then obviously little more improvements. Hey, more cutscenes for universe mode. Hey, we've improved GM mode here and here. And they have this very solid game that they're working off of. The referee pieces are interesting because going for a cover and pinning somebody in 22 or other games, you know how it is. You go for a pin and sometimes I'm waiting 6 seconds for that referee to make their way around. So you're saying that referees are the AI, the logic behind it, it's cleaned up a lot.
Yeah, so something I noticed, I did a lot of AI matches. I personally didn't play, but that also meant that I was able to watch a lot more of things that were happening. It seemed to me that, and I don't think it's 100% perfect by any means because it is still just an AI logic, but it seemed to me that the referees knew positioning a lot better now. So if a move is about to happen in the corner, they're not just going to stand there and then get smacked up as the opponent is hitting the corner buckle anymore. It's like they're actually moving around. When a pin goes to happen, as soon as the pin animation would start, it seems that they slide in to go for that pin.
Sweet.
It seems that it feels a lot more organic and a lot more realistic. Something that I did pitch to the devs, which I honestly feel like is one of the better things of being at these events is being able to try to get their ear, especially right now before they go into development for 2K24.
Yep.
Which is a funny story of how I figured out the AI logic was in. I went up to Brian Williams, who I absolutely love, one of the OGs and masters of the community. But I went up to Brian Williams and I was like, "Hey man, I think we need Fire Pro logic for W2K24," and he was like, "Brother, it's in the game right now. Go, I'll go show you. Come here." And like we went over to my station, he
Wow.
pulled it up, and I literally was like, I wish I would have had a recording of my face. But to go off of that, I brought up to him, "Hey, in Fire Pro, you're able to choose like different little things with the referee of how they react, of how they count, like the speed of which they count in and things like that." I think if we get to the point where like special referee matches are in the game, or like we can even create a referee and do things of that nature, it'd be great if we could add like Earl Hebner had a very different cadence than say
Yes.
Charles Robinson and things
Yes.
of that nature. It'd be great if we could mimic that IRL, or not IRL, but in the video game. So I definitely noticed that AI logic for the referees were a lot better this year. I don't think we're gonna get as much like ditzy refs, if you will, of
Yep.
like they're not going down for the counts right away. I think it's a very, very good thing.
I love it. I have a question here in the chat. Someone is saying, can you do, I guess going back to universe mode for a second with cutscenes, but can you do cutscenes for title matches?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the things I was mentioning earlier is that there are now there's different cutscenes based on the scenarios that you're in the feud type that you're in. And that also includes championships. There are specific championship stories that you can choose, or cutscenes, excuse me, that you can choose within these rivalry actions if a title is on the line. One of them that I noticed was, I didn't click on it, so I don't know exactly how it works, but it seemed like it was like not an open challenge, but it seemed like the champion arrogantly calls someone out, and I didn't click on it, and I really regret it now because I really wish. That's one of the things that I'm like kicking myself about, because it seemed like you were able to choose who would come out to face him, and if that means open challenges are in now, that'd be awesome. But I also didn't click on it, so I can't really 100% fully say that like, yeah, that's what it is, because I didn't see it. So
what about I hope that's in there. That's universe mode sounding good, and it's kind of what I was expecting, where I've seen like incremental changes, like just fine tuning to it. Not it's completely overhauled and they've redone everything, but that they've made certain little improvements. One couple of questions that have come out. One I have is, are they putting in premium live events 2 nights in universe mode, or is it still standard one?
It's still just a standard one.
Okay. The other questions have come up, and I've asked this, I've wondered this too. What about the likes of DX, Evolution, those guys? Because I know they're not in the base game. Did you guys run across that at all, where like DX is in the game, or is all their stuff still either in the creation suite where I can create DX? Because I know that was a big problem last year. We couldn't fully create them, right?
So my biggest issue, right, with this game is, and I've made it very clear to the devs, I made it very clear to 2K and everybody. My biggest issue is that, as you guys probably have seen from everything that came out today with my faction,
Yep.
My faction once again is locking things to my faction, and I have vividly and very much downright outright told Jinx and everybody else from the dev side that is one of the dumbest things that they possibly could be doing right now. Now, I don't know if I've publicly talked about the reasoning that I got from Jinx about it, but When I talked to Jinx about like my fact, and this kind of goes along with your DX and evolution question, to quickly answer before I go into this little tangent. No, didn't see anything about them,
Okay.
which does suck,
Yep.
but it just the nature of what we got to deal with. When it comes to the my faction stuff, though, like I have specifically told them, this is not NBA. Our culture is very different as wrestling fans and as wrestling gamers. We do not care about unlocking cards for a specific mode. If you made it so I can unlock this card and then I can use it in exhibition mode,
Yep.
all right, maybe I'll hear you out. Maybe I'll jump in that mode and maybe I'll unlock NXT Seth Rollins, who I've wanted in the game since 2012. But if it's only in that mode, why do I care? Why do I want to get that? The reasoning that has been told to me by Jinx, and I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes you get told things and you have to brush it off in one ear out the other because it's BS because of the great creators such as What's the Status and World's Finest doing the great work that they do on 2K22. I was told the reasoning is because the team that works on my faction is completely a different team.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different team.
I think you did the interview on this because I remember quoting this in a video.
Okay, bet. So it was in the interview. Okay, I talked to Jinx for like 12 minutes after that interview, so I don't remember what was in the interview and what wasn't.
I do remember you talking about this with him, and he said, unfortunately, or he's like, it's a small independent team of the rest of us that are working on my faction, they're doing their own thing. Getting that integration over is not in the cards, haha. But it's not planned, and they're just two different teams entirely.
And the thing that's like that really is a head scratcher to me is I was specifically told that like another reason why is that we would have to do new entrances, we would have to do new commentary lines and things of that nature. And it made like I get it on one hand, but at the other hand, it's like, well, at least let us put these models in the creation studio, or like if there was give us the option, because like, yeah, sure, we don't have the newest graphics for like say an NXT Seth Rollins, but we don't care a lot of the time.
Give me the alt attire. Just give me the if Rhea Ripley gets another makeover after Judgment Day and you put it in my faction, just let me download that look. I don't care if I can't up the Titantron or change those things, but the look, the attire, the aesthetics, people are going to skip the entrances half the time. So I get what they're trying to say, but the same token, fans I think would be more satisfied if my faction, one, didn't exist because I don't think people asked for it. Two, if you are going to put it in there and you want to be able to drive more revenue by monetization, I understand. I totally get it. Trying to find new, unique ways to do that. I personally think you could do more of like a seasons approach with WWE 2K DLC content, like just do content drops every quarter. But if you're going to stick with the my faction route, like you said, okay, I get a card, a really high valued one. I get that, and now I get the Seth Rollins gear. And I could put it on in-game Seth Rollins. That's all you have to do there. Then you go, great, I have the look of this, or it's that character model. I just think there's ways to do it, and it does sound like, hey, 2K themselves are on a very tight window for the turnaround time for each game every year, and they have this other team working on my faction, and they got to do what they're doing. Kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I am in the chat right now, too, to see real quick, No Name, you said... So you can no longer modify sliders for all AI. That's not true. You can actually do it for all AI. You're able to do a base one. The individual superstar AI is more base superstar to superstar. It's not a broad AI. There is still broad AI logic that is in.
Are there
the superstar logic is just on top.
Okay. Are there more rivalry slots, or is it still the same?
I believe it's still the same.
It was 4.
Oh, well, there might be 5, but I could be misremembering. Okay. I don't. It wasn't noticeable enough for me to remember, so that probably means that it's not. They're still the same.
That's not bad.
The reason why Bruno Sammartino and I know another person that is being talked about, Hulk Hogan, is not on that main roster list is because they are an unlockable character. I cannot talk about what mode they're unlockable in, but they're an unlockable character.
Cool. Do you think that with My Rise that came out, that was shown today anyways, we have 2 branching storylines. You got the Lock, you got like the Legend, the second generation characters, men and women's side. Do you think that they are going to do what they did last year, where they're going to turn around after the first month or so and release some of those My Faction character models that were in there? Because they did that last year. We got like 7 or 9 of them. I think because a lot of fans were like, "Hey, why is all of this blocked and locked behind the mode?" Because even in the screenshots we've seen, I saw Triple H 98, who's my guy. He's in there, and he's not in the base game. Maybe he is in Showcase or something else. I don't know. But do you think that they're going to release those, or do you think that within My Rise, it's an unlocking situation where I can unlock certain characters? I know in some of the screenshots for the
Yeah.
roster, Hurricane was there, Mighty Molly was locked, and Mighty Molly is not listed in the game.
Yeah, I personally believe they learned from their mistakes. I did have a conversation with the MyRise person. Simply Better AM also had a conversation with the MyRise person, which I'll talk about in a second. But I did have a brief conversation about it, and it seems like they learned their lesson from last year, and now they're just gonna have it straight up where when something happens, you unlock it.
Beautiful.
I guess they didn't realize how much that like meant to us. Which you know,
you put the characters in the game.
Exactly. It's insane to me. It just goes to show certain things like as a company they don't understand still, which is why I very much advocate and push for you have to have somebody who understands this culture on your team, which Brian Williams is there now. So that I feel like fixes it because he gets it. He's been there since SVR06. He understands.
So that's good news. That's very good news.
Yeah.
That's a big, because we were talking about this before you came on. I was like, if they make it an unlockable situation, that's motivation for me for players to play the mode and to get those things, those achievements, and unlock characters.
I do not know this. Do not quote me on this. Do not say this is factual. This is just my opinion. I have a theory. All right. And I don't know how we feel about theories here, but I have a theory.
Oh, we love them. Little speculation is not going to hurt nobody.
If you go to my channel, youtube.com/Phoenix Nitro, and you watch that Gigi Dolan versus JC Jane AI match that I put on, you can hear the ring announcer and the commentators say they represent 1/3 of Toxic Attraction. In my opinion, of playing these games for as long as I have, I do not feel they had enough time to cut Mandy Rose. And the reason why I say that is because Toxic Attraction would have had to have been a mainstay in the NXT portion of My Rise. There's no way. I feel she might still be in. I don't know that for certain. I could be completely wrong.
Her entrance is there. We've seen clips of that floating online already. So her stuff is there. And just looking to have it on screen right now, you guys go subscribe over to Phoenix Nitro over on YouTube. But the Toxic Attraction entrance here, there we got the Gigi Dolan entrance. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm holding out hope that Mandy Rose is a My Rise unlockable. So to give a little, I think I can talk about this now. I think it's been long enough. On W2K22, when we did our pre-release content, we were specifically told not to talk about people like Isaiah Swerve Scott, Tegan Knox, et cetera, because they were not in the company anymore. Perhaps they learned how to negate that this year, and they just made her a My Rise unlockable. I don't know. I do not have an answer. I hope, because for those of you that don't know, women's wrestling is my favorite thing ever. Like, I'm a very big advocate for women's wrestling. That's why you only really see me dropping women's content this year, is because I'm a very big advocate for it. I really hope Mandy's still in. I feel like it was too late in the dev cycle, as we know what the dev cycle is as fans, to cut her. I don't think they could have Bray Wyatted her, which Bray Wyatt, they had a lot of time to get rid of those My Rise scenes. So hopefully she's still in. But again, do not know. We're not going to know until we play it and somebody finds it and it goes up on Reddit. So hopefully, fingers crossed that she's still in, because if she is, guarantee everybody's going to start playing that My Rise mode to like. That's another thing I was thinking of. They very easily could have certain characters in this My Rise that you unlock to push people to actually go in and play it. Now, I'm very very iffy on things like that, because personally, if I have an accelerator, I should be able to unlock everything right away.
Yes.
I hate
didn't do that last year. It was like that with Showcase. I could not. I had it. I unlocked.
I played Showcase 12 times.
Yeah, I did too. I had to keep playing it and replaying it just to be able to unlock this thing. But I can definitely see them, to your point. I can totally see them putting characters behind My Rise and making them unlockable that way. And they don't have to mention them if they're not in WWE anymore. It's a great way to get around it. We're like, we're not advertising them. They're not on the official roster list. They're secret hidden unlockables in the game.
Yeah.
And also because of the dev cycle. It's way too close, I think, with Mandy. I think there's a very good chance that someone like her is in the game, and we know her assets are in there too. So it's very, very possible. Logan Drew in the chat has asked, are there drafts or tournaments in universe mode?
Drafts are a no. Tournaments, I'm not sure. I didn't look, but I would have to assume no because if tournaments were in universe, I'm sure somebody would have been talking about it at the event.
So that brings
So
me to my next question, though, because I assume this is not happening. But War Games not in universe mode.
no, War Games is in.
War Games is in universe mode.
So okay, here's the thing that sucks.
Because that's huge. Because I totally was under the impression it was not because we've never gotten tournaments in there. I figured they couldn't pull it off.
I'll give you a good thing and I'll give you a bad thing.
Oh, I love it.
So
Give me the bad.
Good thing is War Games is able to be played in universe mode. The bad thing is whenever you're not doing a War Games match on the show, it's a one ring arena. It's very dumb. I think it's stupid. I asked Jinx specifically about this.
It flips back. So okay.
Yeah. I specifically asked him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, it was basically along the lines of the exact same explanation we get for the chamber matches, and the reason why the chamber is not able to be used in other arenas is because they would then have to code that for every arena. War Games doesn't really make sense. There's only 3 arenas. Like that could be very easy, I feel, but I'm not a coder. I don't know. So there is no double ring without the cage, but you are able to do War Games matches in universe mode. You're just gonna have to obviously do it in one of the 3 arenas. The third arena, I'm sure, has been talked about by now, is the Rise arena. Yeah, which it honestly looks more of a generic War Games arena. It doesn't look like there's any logos on it other than just a generic one that says War Games. So
if I'm playing War Games, I'm setting up a pay-per-view. I'm setting up Survivor Series in my universe mode. I'm going to put in, or it's already preset that it's going to be War Games, men and women's War Games match. I have my War Games match, and then it goes back to my match list for the night, for the pay-per-view. Everything else looks basically the same. Is that it? So then it would just go, I would pick the next match, and it would be Cena versus Austin Theory or something. And it'd be 1-on-1. Exactly. It would switch, and it would go to a single ring arena.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Like that. Exactly like
I'm with you. I have no idea how hard or easy those things are to change, where I'm like, well, couldn't you just delete the cage and give me the double ring? Because I can go maneuver between 2 rings. Why not just remove the cage? And
I brought it up. So Jinx said that Jinx specifically told me, he was like, I know it's gonna get a lot of flack, and we completely deserve it for this one. But they're hoping to get it in 24. Like I told him, especially because I mean I said it in my interview. A lot of people were talking about the 5-on-5 stuff, and I'm like, look, I'm just happy we got the match.
Yeah.
Like,
and he talked about it. He mentioned it in interviews too, where he's like, the team when Brian Williams came back, he said, when I came back, the team was already working on War Games. Like, it's been worked on in a small capacity, or like for a long time. This isn't something they just shoved out. They worked really hard to get it to work. And I give them a little bit of slack, where I'm like, okay, that's probably something really hard to put together for how much is going on in that type of match. And you're getting into working universe mode. I'm kind of like, is it working? Is it stable? It's not glitching everywhere. People aren't warping all over the place. Cool. Let's have some fun. And then next year they can start making more improvements. Like maybe opening it up to other arenas, right?
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully create an arena for War Games. That'd be huge too. That's my honestly big want is for that. So then that way you could have people start making these WCW fall brawls and things of that nature. So going back real quick to talking about what I mentioned earlier with like from the 22 to 23 jumps of different modes and things. I don't know if it's been talked about yet, but what the reasoning for War Games being in 23, as it was explained to me, is that on 22, Backstage Brawls is what gave us War Games. They were able to test every single functionality that is in War Games within Backstage Brawls last year. That's why we had verticality in Backstage Brawls. So you were able to go on these different level changes, and you were able to have different things happen within the Backstage Brawls. They used a lot of that functionality and a lot of that code and put it into the War Games match, which then made it easier for them to be able to finally do it in 2K23. Also, did not expect this my fault. I didn't expect this match to be in the game at all. Did not expect War Games. I found out, because I know a lot of people think that we get info mad early. I found out 2 hours No, 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 not even two. It got
What?
leaked. Yeah, it got leaked by by whatever publication leaked it. And that's how I found out because Simply Better AM texted me. As for those of you that don't know, we live in the same house, in the Vibe house. He texted me and goes, "Did you see the leak?" And I go, "Nah, what leak?" And this was at 7 in the morning.
Oh
And
wow.
he goes, "The War Games leak." I pulled it up, kipped up out of bed like I'm Shawn Michaels, and went to his room like, "Dog, what?" So yeah, we didn't find out at all. We had no inkling, no nothing that was going to be in. We found out the Monday before the trip to the Rumble. That's when that
Wow.
got leaked out. So we didn't know that we were going to be playing War Games. The only thing that I had been told was that there was going to be a new mode, and that's what that was. That is what
Right.
that was. Which kind of confused us because
Yes,
like
it's a match type.
it,
It's not a mode.
yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, what are y'all talking about? But I mean, hey, it genuinely, and I've said this a lot now, and I think I've been quoted as saying this, it's my favorite match type that I've ever played in a wrestling game.
That's awesome.
It's very, very, very intuitive. It's very, very insane. It feels good when you do the springboard from one ring to the other. I couldn't believe that you were able to do whatever move in your move set you wanted in the trench. I thought they were going to limit us to moves similar to Hell in a Cell matches when you're on the outside.
Mhm.
But nah, I was able to hit like a belly to belly with Braun Breaker and like dump somebody on the dome in the 2K Showdown Twitch thing that we did. Like it was a really intuitive match and a really really fun match, and I'm very excited for people to play it. I will say, I think a lot of us from that Rumble event kind of got war games out because we could only do war games for 3 hours. So
Yeah, you get a
that's
little tired.
yeah, that's why I feel like a couple of us weren't really talking as highly about it. But like when you're only doing like a war games match, like every
Over and
like
over and over again.
yeah, like you're gonna get tired of it, and you're gonna be like, maybe I don't do war games again. Like for instance, did not touch war games on at the community
Oh,
day
I
event
bet.
because I had played it already. So I'm like, all right, I don't really need to. I did watch an AI match that's gonna be coming out on the channel. With Damage Control, Lita, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte, because here's a little behind the scenes. If some of you are wondering why certain creators aren't able to post certain people in entrances, we only had 1,000 VC to use to spend on to buy purchasables. And we were not able to earn VC in
Oh,
this build. It was not able to be earned. So we could only I had to make a choice of who I wanted to unlock. And
okay.
seeing old man Shawn Michaels, this has nothing to do with like the base game. Like it's gonna be fine for that. It was just for the build that they gave us.
Yeah.
But I saw old man Shawn Michaels, and love, I love. My favorite thing is when they give us legend characters, but they look modern day. Like I love that personally. That's how I love doing stuff in my universe mode. I love having these older looking characters come back and like doing one last match or one last run. So I saw old man Michaels and I got him, and I did a match with him and Grayson Waller because I was one of those dummies
You
that
got
dummies,
you need
yeah.
that match in your life.
Yeah, I thought we was gonna get it, but they said, nah, here's Johnny Gargano instead. So
Okay, well that makes sense. That's some good like little inside baseball of how this works because I've always wondered that too, and I understand with embargoes there's limited information, limited stuff you could show, how you show it. Everyone's got the same entrances. I've seen a lot of the roster, but I've also sat here today and yesterday like a lot of stars we have not seen, a lot of legends we did not see entrances for at all.
that's why the
I didn't see The
legends are
Rock,
locked.
Stone Cold, Triple H, Cactus Jack, like none of them. Only
Yep,
current
that's
modern
why.
stars, and I get it. That makes sense. Question in the chat is like, let's talk about blood. We all like a little drippy blood on the mat. Is blood mechanics different, fixed, more, better, worse, the same?
I
Or
don't
didn't see it?
have I didn't turn it on. I didn't think to turn it on, so
Okay.
I can't give an answer to that at all. I'm trying to think if I heard anything from anybody else at the event, but I don't think any of us did. I think especially whenever you've gone to these events in the past, which if you have any questions about like that type of stuff too, I can answer that because I know that's something like the community doesn't really know anything about. But whenever you go to these events, you never know how much time you're going to have with the game ever.
Hmm.
So you try to get as much as you can get done as fast as you can get it done. And I told everybody in my vicinity, turn your music down to 20 so you don't get copyrighted because
Yep.
that's something a lot of creators don't realize. And
I saw
I kind of
stuff
wish
posted yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, dude, you can't even. Your stuff's on YouTube." I'm like, "Oh, it's getting flagged."
Yeah. So like I thankfully haven't been hit because I moved my music slider down to 20. If you're any aspiring content creators here in the chat today, make sure you move your music down to 20 so that way you don't get clipped. And the
Yeah.
first thing I did was Gigi Dolan, I feel is someone that is extremely hard to capture, like in terms of face and everything like that. I really wanted to see what Gigi's model looked like. And for all you sickos out there, not for that reason, calm down. So
Well, we have it on screen. We're
and,
playing I Hope It's Okay. I have your
oh
video
yeah,
up
you're
of
good, bro.
Gigi on
Anything.
here for her entrance. I think her entrance,
Looks
I think
amazing.
Toxic Attractions tag team entrance looks amazing.
Absolutely.
It's really
Uh,
cool.
that was the first thing I recorded was GG versus JC. And I recorded that as an AI match. So a little behind the scenes to how like events and stuff work, as I know a lot of people don't really understand how they work or anything like that. I started going to these events back in 2K20, which is the infamous event, as everyone has always talked about it. The W2K20 event in Las Vegas was absolutely top tier, one of the worst events ever in company history. And every creator that's been there has talked about it. Johnny from New Legacy Inc. has a whole video on it. And going from that to the event that we had at Community Day, it was light years ahead and leap years ahead of that event from a like just how smooth everything went. We had 7 hours to do whatever we wanted.
Wow.
They gave us an AverMedia capture card that has the SD card slot in it. They gave us a micro SD so we could just record directly to the SD card, which helped me out a lot because I didn't have to bring a lot of equipment. But what I would personally do is I would start an AI match, I would hit the record button, and then I would go and mingle while the AI match was being recorded, and then I would come back. There were certain matches that I stayed there for, obviously. The Omos stuff, I completely stayed there for because I was very curious about AI logic. And now that I'm in here, if you want to talk about that again with a little bit more examples and stuff, I can
Yeah.
definitely do that.
I have two. Well, I can ask that in just a second. One question came up was infinite loading glitches, load times. Did you experience anything better with that? Infinite
Um,
loading glitches were such a headache for people.
I personally did not crash on
Okay.
anything. I do know James, aka CM Pulse. I know he crashed the game like 3 times. But
But
every time it crashed, a dev would come up and they would be like, "What did you do? Like
yeah.
exactly tell me what you did." And then they would come back like 30 minutes later and be like, "Hey, we checked on the new build that's at the office. Got fixed already."
Oh,
So
okay.
there was no infinite loading screens or anything like that. But at the same time, as I always say, that was on the build that we played.
Yes.
Day one patches can break everything. As we noticed, the first 3 patches of this game, they did not. The AI on 22 did not pin off of signatures, and then the last
Yes.
few patches they pinned off of signatures, and it pissed me off.
Well,
uh,
talk to us about that about AI again, and then
whew,
we'll
game
if you have
changer.
time for that, then I could let you go too. So they've taken up so much of your time today, but
Hey,
it's been
I'm
awesome,
down
buddy.
for whatever. I just woke up, so you got me here as long as you
My
need.
man. All right.
I know that like my biggest thing before I get into that too is like I'm very much about the community. I love this community. Even though the community like there's always going to be the sour bunches and stuff and if you guys follow me on Twitter, you may know that I have it where only people that I follow can reply. And the reason for that is on 22, considering myself, BDE, and Simply Better AM were the only three to play the game early. I got
You got a
mad
lot
death
of
threats
pressure.
last year.
Ugh.
No, I got
Oh,
death, and not even just on me, but on my child, to the point where people were saying the most disgusting things that I've ever had to read about my child. And ever since then, I've been very protective of my peace and things of that nature. However, with that all said, I am still very much about the community. I want to put everybody that I possibly can on in the community. I want to help everybody that I can. I want to talk about everything that I can to the community. That's why I love doing like I did spaces last year on 22 to talk more about the game to people because I know how this is. I don't agree with how they roll out info with the games either. I talk to them every single year like, yo, let us help as creators because we know what our community wants. We know what the people want to see. Let us help. Let us try to help you guys out. But, that's just marketing and things of that nature. But in terms of the AI stuff, right? Uh the reason why I feel like it's going to be so big. If you guys have never played Fire Pro Wrestling Returns or Fire Pro Wrestling World, AI logic is what makes those games. And an example I've been giving to my friends is Think about this with AI, with the AI logic, and I feel like this is going to unlock everyone's brains whenever you go back and rewatch that video that I put up about the combo tendencies, or about the AI combo tendencies, or the AI tendencies. Excuse me, I'm reading it right now, so it's making my brain go crazy. There is AI combo selection towards. Now everybody knows a moveset. With the combo towards, that's when you move the left stick to the right and then do your combo. So there's also neutral, which is when you don't move the left stick, and there's also away when you're moving it to the left or the right, either way. Think about this. Think about setting up a move set for an AI superstar this way, and this I feel like is going to start unlocking people's brains. Towards, make that your late move matches, or like, so moves that you only do late move, or late moves that you only do in the late game of your matches, and turn that AI tendency down to about, I don't know the numbers yet because we haven't really been able to do logic tests yet, but turn that down to about a 10 to about a 15. They're only going to do these big heavy moves later on in the match. They're not going to, like, obviously they can still do it whenever they want, but it's going to set it up to where they don't do it as often as, like, you're not going to see them do an F5 at the beginning of the match or anything like that if it's in your combos. And then think about moving neutral to being some of your early game moves, so that it's the moves that you see throughout the entire match. Move that slider all like higher up, so like a 63 or 65 maybe, and then away do your medium moves, so that way you're layering your AI to wrestle more like that. If your guy doesn't do submissions as a finisher, I tell you this much, in my game I'm turning submissions down almost all the way, because I don't want to see the AI tap somebody out on a half Boston Crab if their finisher is the Oblivion. You know what I'm saying? So also, by the way, I don't know if that's been confirmed yet or not, but you can do the Oblivion as a finisher. So there's three new move, I believe there's 3 or 4 new move thing or situations that you can do finishers in. I'm sure people have noticed it by now. If you're running towards the ropes, you can now do in-ring springboards as finishers, which is really cool. The Oblivion, where they're on the ropes and you can do it like that way now. There's different situations that they've now added, which is very dope. But going back to the AI tendencies, you can change literally almost everything of how the AI reacts to things. If you want to make a jobber, if you want Barry Horowitz in your game, turn blocking and dodging down to a 0, turn down their reversal stat in their AI and their attributes to a 0. They ain't gonna reverse ever, baby. I tell you that much. Like, they're gonna get whooped the entire match. It's gonna be crazy. Like, you can literally make jobbers now that get squashed. It's crazy. There's a lot of things that I feel like this year, and this is why I keep saying it's the most groundbreaking thing that's ever been added, at least in 2 decades. I feel it's so much freedom and choice.
I love it. I love that they're doing more and more to expand it and not boxing it in or trying to introduce more gimmicky things. Like, just stick with the system and just keep building on it. One thing Sebastian in the chat asked, the fatigue system, how does it work, and are tired moves back in the game?
With fatigued moves, it's hard for me to really say, because obviously that is really, it's hard for me to say because I did AI matches. And it's harder for me to notice based upon that, because I can't really tell the fatigue levels unless I'm playing. Like, it's harder to tell with an AI, but in my opinion, fatigue in general is the best it's ever felt in a video game. I think that the way that the fatigue system is now in these games are so much more intuitive. Because prior with fatigue, it would work more so as you're running around the ring at the start of the match and you're gonna fatigue out really quick, but then you're gonna gain it back and you can run around like somebody with their head chopped off again. Doesn't work like that anymore. Fatigue now also is affected by your damage. If you're taking moves during the match, late match, you're gonna be more fatigued. If you're getting whooped on the entire match, near the end of the match, if you're trying to make a comeback and you're trying to get that win back, you're hardly going to be able to, because you're so beat up and your character's moving like they're so beat up. There's a lot of little animations that they've added this year. I know certain people picked up on it with the content we were putting out from the San Antonio event, but there's a point in a Cody match that I've seen where he starts selling his foot, and like, he's selling his foot the entire rest of the match.
Oh, cool.
And It's little things like that they've now added in conjunction with fatigue that makes fatigue feel more real and more vivid, I want to say, in the sense of like it's not a hindrance anymore. It's more of a, oh snap, this feels real.
It
Like
plays
that's what
into
I
the
get off of
match.
it.
It plays into how
Exactly.
the and then you add that with the AI changes. You're
Exactly.
really getting a better feel of a match. Right now we have like the Bloodline entrance going on, and Roman Reigns going there in the ring with his double titles. I was excited double title entrances were back, and seeing them with the Usos have double titles. One of the things that I had question mark on was, are there other unique double title entrances and double titles working in universe mode? Is that a thing?
Double titles in universe mode is a no. I brought it up to them about it
Ah, okay.
specifically because, in my opinion, you've already done it.
Yeah.
You go back to 2K15, 2K16, Brock Lesnar, whenever he had that crazy run with both belts, we had that already. Why can't they just use that functionality? And then they told me, they were like, we didn't think about it like that. So, maybe that gets updated in a patch. Who knows? Hopefully, in my opinion, I hope it does, but I'm not gonna waste my breath on it. But in terms of double title entrances, I only noticed that one. That was a big thing that I noticed as well. Was that if you notice with Jimmy and Jay and their solo entrances that people have been
We have it
posting,
on right now with Jay's,
it's
yeah.
the same animation.
Yes.
And it sucks. I hate it. Hopefully, this is one of those things where now that they have it in the next game, they can add more. I will say though, I will give a caveat. While I do not know for sure, we did not unlock other people that have had double title entrances in the past. The Rock, we did not see. Rock has had double title entrances.
Yep.
Maybe he'll have one. We haven't seen Stone Cold. Stone Cold's had one. We don't know if they're going to be there or not. I'm not wasting my breath on it though. I feel like only Roman's got put in because like obviously he's the only guy recently to be doing it. So hopefully they can add on to that more. That's something I really would like to see them work on a lot, especially now that advanced entrances is, thank God it's back.
I
But
know.
now that it's back, I would love to see custom title entrances or advanced title entrances where you're able to just change which motions where and all
But we
that type
have
of
with
stuff.
Money in the Bank, right? We could see that even with the footage of like we can go in and select. Well, we could with any entrance creator. Like we could go and change up which Money in the Bank entrance we want. Just maybe you just add that in next year where you can do title selection.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I would love that.
Another question that came up was backstage brawls. Pinning. Can we pin in backstage brawl?
I personally didn't go
Or
into a
is it just
backstage brawl match,
okay?
but I don't want to say I don't think so. I think it's still just knockout, but I also didn't play it, so maybe there's hope. I will say I did see Macho T's video
Yeah.
of the spotlight,
Yeah.
and I was like, I was kicking myself. I was like, why did I not go into the back? It happened the same thing last year, okay? Because on 2K22, me, Brandon, and Aaron, or me, Brandon, or me, BDE, and Simply Better AM got flown out to San Fran, and it was just us three, and none of us thought to go backstage because we're like, they never update backstage brawl. And then the trailer comes out, and we're like, oh, come on. So we had to wait until we got our next bit of pre-release stuff to go and check, and then we were blown away. We're like, oh my god, there's so much. And now they added like a spotlight and things like that. So it's
Mhm.
going to be very interesting to see like how that functionality works. But I do believe it's still just the knockout type stuff.
Well, before we wrap up here, because it's almost 1 o'clock Eastern my time, and I want to wrap things up for you, get your day started too, my friend. Are there any final things that you want to be able to speak on? Highlight, because we've talked universe mode, which is awesome to hear, and we'll know even more tomorrow with the footage that's coming out. We've talked about my rise, not confirmed, but there's a potential that there's unlockables within my rise, which is great. My faction is largely unchanged, and I think the community knows how we all feel about that. And then we have war games. Is there anything else that you want to speak on for the game? The floor is yours, man.
In terms of how I feel about it, and of course this is just my opinion on it. And obviously, there's always a honeymoon phase with every single game that comes out, not just wrestling games, but every game period, where everyone is very, very excited because it's brand new and you look past certain stuff. However, I don't feel like at this point I ever honeymoon stuff anymore. I feel like I see things for what they are now. Uh, in my opinion, from the 7 hours that I had at that event with the entire game, I really, really, really feel like we are on the right track to having one of the greatest wrestling games ever. I don't think 2K23 is the greatest ever. I think it's in my top 10 now, though. And I thought 2K22 was great. I'm a big fan of simulation gameplay, so I was really bummed
Yeah,
out the
same.
chain wrestling and stuff like that. Was
Yeah.
not in 22. But I will say, now that Brian Williams is back, we have somebody in our corner for those of you that like that type of gameplay. He's very big on. He was the reason why chain wrestling got added in the first place. So now that he's back, maybe in the future we can get that back. But in terms of 23, just as a whole, I personally think it's my favorite wrestling game since Day of Reckoning. And that's saying a lot. Well, Day of Reckoning and SVR6, those are like my two staples. That's the games that I had the most fun on playing ever. And I still go back and play them to this day. 23 feels like that to me because AI logic is genuinely, I cannot stress it enough, how big of a thing this is for the community because this is only year one of AI logic. Imagine they go even more in depth next year and they give us even more to do with logic like Fire Pro Wrestling. That would be amazing. But for now, it's still insane that they've given us this much level of control because not just for watching AI versus AI, you now are going to have the AI play against you the exact way that you want them to play against you. Imagine throwing up every single AI slider to 100 and playing against a Roman Reigns 99 overall with 100 on all of their AI logic. That's going to be a hard match to win. Like it's going to actually feel difficult now to like do certain things against certain superstars. I feel like AI logic has made this game. It took my excitement levels from okay, this is just going to be a good little entry into this in the franchise. Hopefully we're still moving into the right way to this might be one of the best games in the past like 2 decades almost.
I love it.
Like I feel like because Here Comes the Pain came out 2003. So I feel like in the last 20 years, that's kind of been the magnum opus for a lot of fans and a lot of players. I feel like we're starting to hit that groove again where we're getting back to it because we had a long lull as a wrestling game fan. We had a long lull for almost 15 years where they just weren't doing what they should be doing. And now it feels like finally, bro, finally, they're starting to update the modes we want to see updated. Universe mode finally getting love. It's gotten the biggest update it's ever had since WWE 13, which is insane to say, but it's the truth, which is crazy. We finally have story type stuff to choose from. Hopefully, and you know, I've said it a lot during this little session we've had here. They have a specific way of how they do things. They implement something in a bare bones way the year before, and then they refine it for the next year. They rewrite codes so that way they can add on to codes in the next game. We now have stories to choose from in 2K23. Fingers crossed story designer comes back soon because I know from talking with each of the devs, story designer is high on their radar for what they want to bring into the franchise again.
It sounds like they could use a little bit of what they have now with the elements of the story design right now with the item list where you can do that. Sounds like maybe they're going to just beef that up over the years and that becomes your story designer, right? Because from what you've told us, there's so much freedom and I can change anything within that story option of like, okay, who is going to be the one that comes out, who interferes, who does the so I think that's what they're probably going to build off of. Rapid fire questions for you if you don't mind.
Oh yeah,
before we
big
wrap up here. Can wrestlers take the straps down off like Undertaker straps down, Kurt Angle straps down?
I personally didn't play with anybody with a singlet, so I do not have the answer to that.
Another one that just looking through the chat here, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here, doing your thing, hanging out. Faction rivalries. Can I put Judgment Day and the Bloodline in a rivalry, or is it still 2-on-2?
It's still 2-on-2 from what I noticed. However, there are some cutscenes that have more than just 2 people, 2-on-2. So take that for what you will. You probably could, as a creator or as just a universe mode player, you probably could get immersed in doing something like that on your own. So be mindful of things like that. Obviously, you're still gonna have to use a little imagination, but at the same time, with you having complete control now, you can really keep things like going in the order that they should be going. So
cool. Phoenix Nitro. I'm gonna wrap it up there. Great conversation. This was amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much for choosing to come on and offering to come on, man. That's awesome.
Of course.
We got
Always,
so much
man.
done.
Hey, one community, one band, one sound, no drum line.